research methodologies. Our perspective is uniquely informed by our hands-on work with 500,000 client interactions across every major function, geography, industry, and sector. We don't just provide the business and technology insights, we work with you to apply them, equipping your team with practical tools and expert guidance to achieve your goals. So whether you are new to Gartner or one of our existing clients, today you'll get actionable, objective insights rooted in human intelligence to help you move forward with confidence. I'm Daniela, your moderator for this session. Before we get started, I have a few tips to help enhance your webinar experience. Here are our rules of engagement for watching this session. We'll pause for a moment to give you time to review them. Around the video player, you'll find a variety of ways to interact with the session. We encourage you to participate by adding your questions and thoughts in the Ask the Speaker box. You can either submit a question anonymously, or if you choose, your name, title, and company will be visible along with your question. Navigate to the bottom of the page to download additional resources. Throughout the program, you can also rate this session and share feedback. To submit your rating, locate the Rate the Session link below the player. A box will open for you to select 1 to 5 hearts. To submit your rating, please note that 5 hearts is the top rating. Share your feedback on the insights provided in the Leave the Further feedback box and click Send. This webinar is being recorded, and you can watch this presentation again and again to find more great insights on demand at gartner.com/webinars. Now, I'd like to welcome Gartner Distinguished Vice President Analyst Rita Salam. Rita, thank you so much for joining us, and now I'll turn it over to you.
Thank you, Daniela. Hi, everyone. Welcome to Data and Analytics 2030. Here we'll discuss 3 shifts that you need to make to create sustained value as a data and analytics leader in the age of AI. But I'd like to start this discussion with a topic that's near and dear to my heart and many of you, mammograms. The word mammograms, I know, it elicits different emotions depending upon your age, your gender, or whether or not someone you love has been saved by one. For most women of a certain age, like myself, it's a dreaded annual pilgrimage. And while traditional AI-assisted mammograms have been around for quite some time, they detect current issues. So a May 2025 FDA authorized algorithm actually predicts breast cancer 5 years in advance with 70% accuracy. Now, radiology-assisted mammograms, they don't predict. So this is a game changer. And how could they do this? Well, they achieved this by from the sort of innovative critical thinkers at Clarity and Kung-Fu.ai, 2 vendors. They combined a unique data set of decades of global and diverse longitudinal mammogram data. And they also applied federated learning techniques to protect privacy, to solve what is a massive problem that'll transform the standard of care and save countless lives. So my question for you really is, and what I hope you think about during the session and maybe afterwards as you go about your day-to-day work, is through 2030, as a DNA leader in your organization, how will you create unique value? And so, that's sort of the key. Because really, as models and underlying infrastructure commoditize, and they're commoditizing quickly, you need to deliver on essentially 3 things, right? You need to create highly discoverable, trusted, high quality, and importantly, reusable data and context for that data, just like Clarity did when they created this breakthrough mammogram algorithm. Now, imagine getting rid of all your dashboards by converting that highly discoverable, trusted, reusable data and data products into perceptive and proactive and fluid intelligence that's on tap and ready when anybody needs it. You'll probably need to do that as well. And then you'll need to deliver that always on intelligence to smaller teams of broadly skilled, AI augmented, likely exceptional critical thinkers who know how to ask the right questions, who can frame the right problems, and maybe even in small teams of as small as 2 people, one tech generalist, one business generalist, with agent specialists assisting their work. And you'll see some examples of that today. And so what we do know from all of this experience with AI, particularly generative AI since let's say late 2022, delivering value is really hard work. And most executives don't understand what it takes. They think you're just going to buy more tools, more AI tools, more ChatGPT, and voila, transformation. But you've all heard the numbers. Our particular surveys show that approximately 4 in 5 AI investments have not resulted in measurable ROI. Now, that's the bad news. The good news is those numbers don't tell the full story. In fact, 1 in 5 are quite happy with their investments. And so what do they do differently? One of their attributes is that they spend 4 times as much as a percent of revenue on foundations that you are responsible for as DNA leaders, on data, on governance, on people, and people transformation and change management. They spend 4 times as more as a percent of revenue than those that are least satisfied. And so, how do we get there? How do we be that 1 in 5? Well, it all starts with your AI ambition. What are your business objectives with respect to AI? How you invest in those foundations, how you execute to build those foundations, your degree of change, all of that will depend on your organization's AI ambitions. And of course, where you are today, how far do you need to go? That's the question. How far, not only do you need to go, how far will you go? Will you keep the same processes and augment them with AI? Or will you refine and sort of recalibrate your processes? Or will you need to completely reimagine your enterprise? And then the DNA organization and your leadership style will have to also transform to support that kind of ambition. And by the way, this is a journey. It's a continuum. You may have pieces of different archetypes as you transition. You may have divisions in your organization that are different archetypes, understandably. But the key is that you have to identify your ambition, where you are today, and put in place a strategy, a roadmap, an operating model, a value realization approach to achieve your organization's AI ambition. And so, the challenge is that while many organizations can defend their competitive positions today by being AI cautious, not every organization has to be AI first. It does become a risky position by 2030. And while it feels safe today, AI first organizations, they won't just be more efficient. They'll be operating with an entirely different business model, powered by perceptive analytics, by increasingly autonomous execution. So wherever you are, you need to think about how you shift right. And so that brings us to the shifts that you'll need to make. Based on your AI ambitions, those foundational investments, they drive those shifts through 2030 towards your AI ambition. And so to create unique value, every organization has to rethink, first and foremost, how do you work? Which means creating value compounding through agentic transformation. Agents will impact how DNA operations function. Next, you need to think about, how you build and scale, particularly in your tech foundations, recognizing that important to how agents function, critical, in fact, is the concept of context. It is the brain of AI. So much so that we believe that that's your new critical infrastructure. Now, if you've been in analytics for any amount of time, analytics people always knew that context is important. We called it semantics, but that semantics has extended beyond just, your business objects universe to include other things like ontologies and knowledge graphs. Those will be critical. Those are critical for how agents function accurately and cost effectively. And so we need to do that. And then the third thing is the third shift that we need to make is thinking about trust as a catalyst of value, not just as a mechanism for control. How do you do this? How have others been successful? That's what we'll talk about as well. So I always like to start, you'll see throughout this presentation, I will share what I call pace setting practices. And so this is our first one. This pace setter is Triumph. They are a transportation payment network, transitioning from what they call a traditional bank to a data company. And they've implemented many of the things we'll talk about today, AI capabilities, in their case, to automate invoice risk ratings. And what this has allowed them to do basically is to pay low risk invoices in seconds rather than in days. And that allows them to route sort of the high risk ones to humans. Now, this shift automated 75% of their 10 billion plus business, their annual transportation, loan factoring, microtransactions volume. And for them, it represents this fundamental shift towards increasingly autonomous decision-making. It's a fundamental business model reinvention. You can see the results. Net promoter score increased from 33 to 75. That's like Apple territory. And their EBITDA increased by 10%. So pretty decent results, excellent transformation. And the keys to their success is, again, data. They built a bespoke, in their case, non-generative AI model based on their company's proprietary data. They invested in people processes, they re-engineered, reimagined their core processes. They invested in foundations and, importantly, governance. They implemented a plan to manage risk and trust. They're in a regulated industry, so that was critically important. And people, innovation, and data applied to transforming their business. So let's talk more about the foundations needed to achieve this. And we will start first with compounding value through transforming your organization with, and it's not just going to be on your own or with agents on your own. There's going to be human agent collaboration. And to do this, you need a new operating model to get your current talent pool ready, and you need to hire for the future. The skills you need will be different, and how you organize will be different. And to see what the future will look like, ask yourself, what if we could start from a clean slate today? And to do that, just look no further than AI startups. They give us a peek into the future of organizations with AI native processes that combine people and agents. Now, legacy organizations aren't going to be able to do that, but they give you some view into a path that, or at least a continuum on which you might try to progress so that you can work in a similar way. Now, in this case, our research shows there are a number of AI native startups that generate 10 times the annual recurring revenue, or ARR, per FTE than other startups. And so these startups will be the pace setter for incumbent companies in the future. And so, we see that within data and analytics, right? You're seeing increasingly agentic capabilities making their way into the tooling that you already use, the end-to-end workflow for data management, data preparation, context, model generation, catalog generation, governance, analysis. All of those activities are becoming more available and increasingly autonomous. We just published a great toolkit that can help you prioritize DNA-specific agentic use cases that you can certainly access if you are a Gartner client. And here's a prediction regarding potential for AI and agentic transformation in DNA, specifically in data management specifically. We see that by 2029, agentic data management using adaptive, context-aware, again, these agents need context, AI agents will have automated 75% of data engineering workflows, freeing capacity for higher value reinvestment. And so, that will certainly accelerate. Now, what are the implications of that? Where do people fit into this version of the world? We don't believe the future is about replacing humans, but really amplifying their ingenuity, their ability to execute, their innovation. So here, teams will shift from what is currently sort of your pizza pie model of human specialists led in an AI cautious organization to agile fusion teams of business, technical, and AI augmentation. If you're AI opportunistic, you're probably here. To what will be AI first? What is AI first? We see AI first organizations implementing this today to tiny agent augmented teams of humans and agents in decision pods. Exceptionally pace-setting companies here report experimenting with teams of 2. 1 technology generalist, 1 business generalist. Insourcing, of course, will increase in this model as teams have more capacity. So the good news is that AI, we don't believe, will result in a net headcount reduction in DNA, although there will be a transition of roles and skills, but will require broad skilling the workforce. The bad news is that broad skilling is much harder than cutting headcount, but that is what will be required. And that also means that, again, the future isn't about replacing humans. We don't believe that. But you will need to transition people, and they will need new management skills. Agent management skills are different, right? They're big picture thinking types of skills. As humans become agent managers, orchestrators, administrators, challengers, auditors of agents of agents and their decisions, importantly, in these agile, tiny decision pods. And, people who are best at managing these swarms of agents will be these big picture thinkers. Many people in the current sort of AI cautious pizza pie model are specialist thinkers. So managing agents will be a new skill that has to be developed and hired for ultimately. Now, as an example, the impact will be felt across data and analytics. But if we look at analytics in particular, it's an area of significant change, right? Affecting every organization with a dashboard, which probably is everyone who is attending this webinar. We know that visual-based data discovery with interactive dashboards, think Tableau, think Spotfire, think Click, and now Power BI. Tableau and Spotfire actually and Click disrupted that market in the early 2000s. Now the entire technical layer, SQL writing, data modeling, dashboard creation, insight detection, anomaly identification, recommendations, and actions, they're all being automated by agents. We're calling it agentic analytics. And we believe this will have such an impact that by 2028, 40% of self-service analytics users will adopt some form of LLM data types of analysis, and that will reshape the analytics landscape, displacing standalone analytics and BI vendors, maybe that don't adapt. Maybe your vendor will extend. But AI first DNA organizations are really reimagining self-service as increasingly autonomous service. So, and those users are empowered to use natural language or vibe analytics, sort of the parallel to vibe coding, instead of using pre-built dashboards to analyze their data. And so here I'll just share another pace setter with you. Pace setter Laura Reinhardt, she's the CDAO at Cisco. They're the food company, not the router company. She has the audacious goal to eliminate 14,000 traditional dashboards in her organization by 2030, replacing them with an agentic platform that they've already started to orchestrate what she describes as autonomous workflows and delivering AI-powered persona portals with conversational analytics and embedded analytics. So they're moving from, sending notifications to these self-resolving AI-powered insights. So users, say a district sales manager, can ask, natural language questions to retrieve insights like whether a specific customer is meeting their contractual agreements. And this isn't overnight. This is a 5-year journey they are on across the dimensions that we've been talking about. So they're modernizing their data platform, in their case, shifting away from traditional time-consuming processes of physically centralizing their data. Instead, they're adopting a data fabric methodology to connect application systems directly. What she says is, if you think you have to collect all of your data physically, that's probably the biggest pitfall she suggests you avoid. She's automating data governance and management, moving from, policy and spreadsheets to policy and code, from passive oversight to active automation. And this includes embedding automated data quality checks, lineage tracking, metadata tagging directly into the platform itself. And of course, she is maturing her analytics. We already talked about that, with the 14,000 dashboards. And importantly, she's investing in changing the way people work and the ways of working. So in her case, and we see this consistently with AI-first organizations, she's upskilling the existing workforce, and rather than recruiting new roles. And this involves basically certification programs to help data engineers, data scientists, analysts evolve into AI engineers. She's using AI to automate, manual coding, dashboard creation, and then the team's excess capacity, we'll talk about this in a sec, is being reinvested into data storytelling and managing the feedback loops from their agents. And so what that means is, to be able to actually do this, you need a talent shift and competency at hiring and cultivating what are exceptional people. We're calling them questionnaires. And what are those questionnaires? What attributes do they have? Well, because AI can't automate the necessary ingredients for success, we know this. You still need sort of humans there in the loop or in the lead, however you want to describe it. As tasks are automated, you will place a premium on these uniquely human qualities and capabilities. So the goal is for you to hire and cultivate people who can challenge AI, who can frame the right questions, who can identify the right problems and decisions, who can synthesize cross-domain knowledge, of course, potentially assisted by AI, but they have the tacit knowledge in their heads. Importantly, those people have to have thirst for continuous learning, maybe daily, intradaily, for fluid knowledge and reinvention. Ethics, adaptive learning will be core ethos of the continuously informed employee in 2030 that acquires fluid knowledge as things change. You'll need to hire and develop broad-skilled questionnaires, and you might even call them decisioneers. I like that title too. So again, if we look at Cisco and Laura Reinhardt, again, this is her pace-setting practice here. So this is Kung-Fu.ai, not Laura Reinhardt, although she's doing something very similar with her full-stack engineers. But Kung-Fu.ai, one of the vendors on the mammogram example, they, in addition to collapsing what were separate roles similar to Cisco into full-stack data, AI, and software engineers, they also staff their projects with AI strategists. And those AI strategists are aligning engineering to corporate strategy, to business value, to make sure also that they get the change management, the people and the process and the organization organizational context just right. So another great example here. And then, now your people strategy and your value strategy are very much intertwined. Because when you redesign your teams for human agent collaboration, you're essentially creating excess time or excess capacity, right? But contrary to popular belief, which, time actually doesn't equal money. It doesn't equal value. It's theoretical, particularly time from productivity. Time value has to be harvested and converted into financial outcomes through business change, through transformation, and people upskilling and transformation, and new performance metrics. So AI first leaders will create what we're describing as this value flywheel, where efficiency gains from high impact investments are intentionally, and that's the key, intentionally reinvested into growth and innovation, which is measured and managed intentionally. Work and performance metrics have to be redesigned. It's not enough just to throw out, tools to everybody in the organization and expect miracles to happen. Intentional reinvestment is required. And that means that, the currency of success actually changes from time saved to time transformed into money. And the key is to embed value management in every single part of the value lifecycle, from use case assessment, prioritization, through pilot, through rollout and production, because things change in production, particularly on the cost side. Intentionally reinvesting excess capacity is key to your DNA transformation for 2030. So that brings us to our next foundation, our next shift. Value is a function of accuracy, which drives trust, which drives cost, which will be highly variable in an unpredictable world of AI, and particularly as systems scale and are under pressure from real world conditions. So the solution, you need to evolve your data foundation with context as a critical infrastructure, similar to how you think about cybersecurity. It will be your next board level issue. And so what's the mandate here? Well, the current challenge is there's a semantic disconnect, right? AI agents can't reconcile data across siloed systems. So that leads to high hallucination rates or partial truths and poor decision-making. There's a knowledge gap. AI agents can't follow operational guardrails because tribal knowledge or tacit knowledge and policies remain often trapped in human workflows. And then there's an execution risk. AI agents performing unauthorized or non-compliant actions. There's an intersection here with governance without a layer to govern the intent and permissions. So lots of challenges. So here, and so what that means is that, the mandate for you is that, success through 2030 for DNA isn't about better models. It's about giving agents governed, contextual access to the right data. So again, this elevates context to critical infrastructure, in my opinion, in our opinion. That's our view. And so what does that mean? That means that you need to extend or build an architectural and vendor roadmap for 2030. And this isn't a one-size-fits-all thing, folks. Your roadmap, your vendor strategy will look very different if you're AI cautious versus opportunistic versus AI first. To support those choices, we've defined what we're describing as an intelligence capabilities framework. We also have drill downs to those. We have reference architectures in our GTP practice that helps you guide implementation of this intelligence capabilities framework. And so you'll have to invest really in all layers, but your overweighted focus through 2030 will be on evolving your information and context layers because, again, they are the brains for AI. And so, what does that mean? We know that strong data equals powerful AI, but how do you do that? How do you move from AI cautious stance with traditional data management for mostly structured data into a data fabric supporting structured and unstructured data, delivering high quality reusable data products as you evolve to AI opportunistic, much like Cisco is doing. We know that AI first organizations will need to evolve even further to a multimodal data fabric of capabilities, supporting multimodal streaming, synthetic data, ultimately, particularly as world models or physical AI become something that you adopt in your organization beyond, in 2030 and through 2030 and beyond. Using agents potentially to build and maintain autonomous data products. The AI first information layer has to support real-time agentic use cases like a call center interacting in real-time conversations. And that means high frequency event detection and routing. That means dynamic data sharing between agents. And that means the ability to trigger automated actions based on real-time data. So those are extended capabilities that if you are AI cautious, you most likely don't have today and need to build. And then context. So context gives data meaning. It's the word of 2026. Let's drill down a bit on it. Why do you need context? What is it? Basically, the important business reason is that agents can't function autonomously without high quality context, and they can't function with trust, and they can't function cost effectively. This is a cost issue as much as it is a reliability and accuracy issue. And so what exactly is context? Well, it's the intersection of three things. It's semantics. So those are the rules, the definitions that you need to run your business. They can be metrics, they can be ontologies, they can be ownership rights and decision rights, policies. It is the operational state, right? That is the live environment. What's happening right now in the organization that an agent needs to factor into its behavior and into its decision making, your entities, your activities, your conditions. And last, it's traceability or memory, right? The memory of what was done, what were past decisions, what were past actions and outcomes. Now, when you combine all of these three things, you aren't just building a database, you're creating situational awareness for agents. You might describe it as a digital twin of your business, right? It knows the rules, it sees the current environment, and it importantly remembers past outcomes and feeds that into agents. If you throw raw data at your agents, they're not going to produce accurate results, and it's going to cost you a ton in tokens. So context is king, and context, which is what allows you to address that. Now, there's a bunch of research out there on why this is important. Amazon has a focused chain of thought research that proves this point. We've actually modeled this out in our own proprietary cost models. Look, AI agent accuracy and cost are literally 75% content and 25% data. It's super important because the deployment of reasoning models processing unstructured data consume 7 to 10 times as many tokens needed to resolve interdependencies. Now, it beats beyond that. If you throw raw data at an LLM, that's a lot of tokens, and you're not going to get the accurate result. You have to give precise instructions to agents, which is a narrowed set of instructions that are fewer tokens, so that you get a more precise answer on the output side, higher accuracy. Output tokens cost more than input tokens, so you want to minimize those as well. So by adding context, also you can separate the information extraction from reasoning, and that results in a reduction of reasoning tokening consumption by 2 to 3 times without sacrificing accuracy. So for all of those reasons, I'll say it again, context is king. Context is king. And so pace setting practice, again, Cisco is one of them. They built the data foundation, they built the context layer, they built the governance and trust layer as part of their 5-year journey. And think about it, instead of an AI model running, even if you just look at a traditional machine learning model, running through thousands of lines of transaction data to find the exact, 2 lines of data that it needs to inform its algorithm, that's time consuming. From a compute perspective, it's expensive. If the model uses a semantic layer or a context layer to instantly locate the exact points it needs, that significantly reduces compute costs. It improves accuracy. Same concept for LLMs more broadly. And there are many ways that you can provide LLMs with context. Again, we have lots of research here. Now, to really make AI work at scale, we also need solid integrated engineering practices as our foundation. And that's why, if you're doing one-off projects, you may want to move off of that and focus on connected AI engineering. Again, sort of the full stack engineer concept really facilitates this. So we can build products that are scalable, that are reusable, and even autonomous. These small teams of broadly skilled full stack engineers like Kung Fu, like at Cisco increasingly, they're key to making this happen. We even have one client that in their entire IT organization, they have 5 roles, just 5 roles. So we're talking about extreme compression here for AI first. Another pace-setting practice is a job recruiting organization in Europe. They're called PageGroup. The context layer and the AI engineering platform for them create capabilities tiers for reusable, scalable implementations, right? So they are doing just that. They have a capability layer where a single agentic capability, let's say an agent built for finance, can be reused across different departments, creating a one-to-many multiplier. So great best practice there. Now, that takes us to our third shift. Agents can't function at scale without trust or trustworthiness. Traditional control-based models, they have to be overhauled. They can't function at the speed of agents, right? Policy on paper can't function at the speed of agents. So how do we do this? Current models, approaches never worked all that well, but they're super entrenched. So how do we get past that? What we do know is some good news, that making a shift in governance approaches does move the needle. So those data management, data governance teams that are actively involved in AI governance and delivering AI-ready data, they're 3 times more likely to report they're achieving high business outcomes. Now, the bad news is that same survey said that only 13% of us are actually doing that. So we need some work here, but that's part of growth. And so to overcome this challenge, we know that software development gave us the enterprise secure by design. So now DNA has to enable trustworthy by design, right? The enterprise needs this to accelerate innovation safely. It's critical. And so what are the pieces of that? Some of this intersects with context, right? AI first organizations shifting from documenting policy to operationalizing policy by embedding technology enforced behavioral controls directly into workflows, right? Governance, of course, plays a key role at every level of the intelligence capabilities framework I showed you earlier. But in particular, AI-first organizations also build some governance into the context layer, some security into the context layer with tools like graph ontologies and active metadata for agent awareness. Of course, decision tracing relates to the memory piece of context that we talked about, keeping agents on track, knowledge and context graphs. You hear that's sort of a buzzword over the past few months. Add structure, they add memory. You need agent memory. Vector databases alone just aren't enough for that. Governance gets embedded through literacy programs and policy as code. So effectively, your AI engineers help enforce those rules. They're not just the compliance team, they almost become your first line of defense for governance. And that requires a shift in their skills, potentially their performance metrics, as they may become accountable for how agents function. And then, centralized data and agent catalogs clarify ownership, they clarify permissions, while you also see that real-time enforcement protects privacy and personalization. And of course, data GovOps, what we mentioned earlier in terms of, AI engineering and XOps types of capabilities, that makes this all scalable. And so what does that mean? One of the things that Cisco did is also, another best practice, they built a federated model where the business domains, supply chain, customer experience, they actually build their own agents and products, while Reinhardt's centralized team orchestrates those agents and manages the governance. So Cisco treats trust as the single most important factor in realizing AI value. Without it, she believes, and I agree, that there is no adoption. You can't have adoption without trust. But everything can't be automated. We still need humans in the lead, humans in the loop, stewardship that preserves velocity but strengthens accountability. So humans ultimately have to be your last line of defense, turning governance from a perceived, sort of constraint into a force multiplier. Now, this requires evolving stewardship from what is typically a very reluctant data janitor, like nobody wants that job, right, to a strategic referee that leverages embedded governance across what might be operational, analytics, semantic, ontology, and even decisions. We need to govern decisions, not just models. So effectively, they become knowledge stewards. They become your knowledge stewards. And again, let's look at a pace setting practice here. And this is just wrapping up all the practices that I've shared so far and all of the shifts. This is our final pace setter, Newton. They are a BPO global debt collector, and they again show the practices of many of the things we highlighted: data, small human agent teams, investments in foundations, compounding value. Again, they are a global BPO focused on debt collection in their call centers, and they have 1 million active accounts with multiple calls to each per month. Their agent-driven call center, Zoe, handles less complex cases with human agent failovers for moderately complex, and then they have human only for their most complex debt collection. Now, the human agent failover debt collection improved their collection yield, let's say, by 20% than either alone. So that's positive. For them, though, redoing the data foundations and completely redesigning the process were key. And another key thing, importantly for Newton, is that the value wasn't just in cost cutting, although they were able to cut their call center costs. It was being able to break through the human constrained call centers for growth through business transformation. And that allows them to grow at a much faster pace into different countries that they couldn't do as quickly with solely human-based call centers. So in their case, they reach for the top, not for the bottom. They reach for transformation, not for sort of defensive types of use cases only. And so now let's get back to you. What's your value? How will you create value? How will you create really a new currency of value for your organization? So first and foremost, you need to think about creating, if you're not already doing it, highly discoverable, trusted, high quality, reusable data and context. Every single AI pace setter we spoke to and I shared with you today, I didn't share everything, but the ones I shared, without exception, they have mature, reusable, and increasingly AI and AI agent augmented data products, or they have a strategy in place and they're pretty far along on doing that. They're investing heavily in their context layer. Most of them are still building that out. Nobody's really quite at the apex right there yet. But it's part of their strategy, and they're pretty far along, generally speaking. They're intentionally reinvesting extra capacity from productivity gains to compound business value from their efforts, from the capacity that they've saved. And then you need to convert that into perceptive, proactive, fluid intelligence, again, on tap, ready for everyone. Pace setters are moving beyond dashboards, for sure, getting rid of them in the thousands, embedding actionable autonomous insights and decision-making in their applications to transform their organizations, save lives like Clarity and Kung Fu.ai did, by democratizing these conversational agents and making them available to gain insights, say with Vibe analytics versus dashboards. And then certainly there is sort of an impact on your organization. We're calling it the A-shaped organization, the AI-shaped organization, because that always-on intelligence is going to be delivered to a different type of team ultimately. That's what we're seeing with AI first, to broadly skilled, AI augmented critical thinkers who know how to ask the right questions. They are probably big picture thinkers. They frame the right problems. Kung Fu.A, Newton, Cisco, the others exemplify this approach, reducing the number of roles in their organization, cultivating and hiring those questionnaires, those decisionaires who are happy to continuously change and learn and orchestrate and manage and amplify their own work with agents. How you amplify your data, your context, your people to transform your organization, that is your new currency of value for AI. That essentially will be your superpower. And so now many of you may be thinking, oh my goodness, that's just so much for us to absorb. We're just at the beginning. I hear you. Getting here from here to 2030, that can be super overwhelming, particularly if you're AI cautious today. But here are 3 things you can do to start to shift right. And the first is just understand your organization's AI ambition. Plan for those transformations. You know the saying, you don't have to be great to start. You just have to start to be great. So get started shifting right. Get a process and a capability for fast cycle innovation to pilot a pace-setting initiative to showcase the art of the possible. People across the organization need inspiration. They need a vision to rally around, particularly your executives, but they have to understand what's required to get there, all the foundations. Identify those questionnaires, those decisionaires in your organization, start broad skilling them today, from hiring, shift from hiring for roles to cultivating skills. Those are the things you can do today, regardless of what your ambition is or where you are today. And so, the way I see it is we're at such an exciting time in DNA. We're so fortunate, but really the future is a choice, right? And you have the great privilege. I'm so happy for you and for all of us. We work in a space where we have the great privilege to shape it. So that is where I end. We have a survey. If you are interested in participating in that, feel free to just click, go to the QR code and participate. It's great data. And then now I'll just turn it back over to Daniela to share with us what we need to do for questions.
Thank you, Rita. We have some time for questions now, so please submit them in the Ask the Speaker box. And you can also rate the session using the link below the player. As a reminder, 5 hearts is the top rating. And you can share your feedback on the insights today in the Leave the Further feedback box and click send. Before we do get to Q&A, here are some resources to take you deeper into the insights that were covered today. The insights shared today are just a glimpse of the objective, indispensable guidance that Gartner provides to help CDAOs and their teams deliver business impact through data analytics and AI. Gartner's solutions for CDAOs combine forward-thinking insights, interactive tools, expert interactions, peer experiences, and executive-level guidance from seasoned thought partners, equipping you to lead, change, mature governance, and communicate the value of data and analytics across your organization. You'll also gain insight into role-specific benchmarks, best practices, and contextualized insights tailored to your unique challenges. Plus, Ask Gartner, our AI-powered tool for instant access to trusted Gartner expertise. To learn more, simply follow the link on the slide or connect with your Gartner representative today, and let's explore how you can help you and your team accelerate impact. Experience Gartner's business and technology insights in person. You can attend a Gartner conference to join thought-provoking sessions led by industry visionaries, meet one-on-one with Gartner analysts to refine your strategy, network with fellow leaders, explore the latest innovations from top solution providers, and more. You can also explore the trends and predictions shaping the future of data, analytics, and AI through 2031. Discover how your organizations can anticipate change and drive value in rapidly evolving landscape. Download your copy today of over 100 data and analytics predictions through 2031 ebook. Please find the next 2 slides with recommended research hand-selected by our analysts today. Access to Gartner Insights is subject to individual subscription type and product entitlements. To learn more about access to Gartner research, expert analyst insight, and peer communities, contact your Gartner representative or click on the Talk to Us on Gartner.com to speak with one of our specialists. And if you want to stay in the know, make sure to connect with us on LinkedIn, Twitter, and sign up for our bi-weekly newsletter to receive the latest Gartner IT insights and updates across research, conferences, and more. It's all curated specifically for IT leaders and decision makers. You can also download these resources from the bottom of the page. Plus, you can get more Gartner insights, access additional resources, and see upcoming and on-demand webinars at gartner.com/webinars. Okay, Rita, over to you to address the questions now.
Thanks, Daniela. So great questions, everyone. Thanks for putting those in the chat. I see several questions on cost. A topic very close to my heart. So I just published a pretty spicy note last week. If you're a Gartner client, you can find it. It basically says, the title is basically that AI cost explosion will force a rethink and refocus, sort of ruthless focus on high value use cases. And so we've been talking about costs since, I want to say, February of 2023 as a potential issue. We published a model to help clients think through how they would, what things would cost at scale. And I can tell you that until 6 months ago, every value call that I brought up the topic of cost and how costs are going to explode at scale, and you really need to model out your costs, and costs are not just tokens. There are all of these, foundational costs, like we just said 4 times, high value organizations that are realizing value from AI spend 4 times more on the foundations than organizations that realize low value. But the token costs are a huge thing. Look, Gen AI is never going to be cheaper than it is today. And there are a number of reasons for that, right? A number of reasons. The first thing is that your frontier model providers have been subsidizing pricing to try to gain market share. That's not a new strategy in tech, right? That's always been the case, low pricing, get people hooked, get people addicted. But then, look, investors can't accept, massive losses forever. So you're already starting to see, pricing model changes from per user, which shift the usage cost risk onto the vendor, to consumption-based pricing. I mean, you guys have seen it probably and maybe you've experienced it. If you've got Claude, if you've got GitHub Copilot, your people are probably using their monthly, budget in a day or in 20 minutes or in one, very intense query. So we're seeing that. I don't believe that things change. I mean, demand is only going to increase unless there's massive disruption in energy, the cost of energy for LLMs and for LLM-based queries. The fundamental cost of factor of production doesn't materially change. And then there's massive just ongoing investment by frontier model providers to continue to develop, the more recent updated models. They continue to invest in data centers. So massive, operating losses. And then that gets passed on to your AI application vendors, right? Look, GitHub is an example. Others where they have to use, even though the cost of older models is going down, the newer models are still super expensive. And so, ISVs or AI application vendors are using the most expensive models. And, obviously they're going to get margin squeeze. Their investors aren't going to put up with it forever. And that's going to continue. And then there is, those vendors that try to get out from under that will build their own small language models, like to support, sort of to get out from the reliance on frontier models. But then that may lower their ongoing cost, just as it might lower your ongoing cost if you decide to deploy a small language model. By the way, as Newton did to support their agentic strategy, they have many small language models supporting that call center application. That is a cost optimization strategy for inference, but then you have the upfront cost of actually building that. And so potentially they will pass that on to you. Then there's the third bit, which is agents cost is very unpredictable and variable, right? The agent costs are a function of the number of steps in an agentic workflow, the complexity of those steps, the complexity or the amount of reasoning that's required within that agentic flow. And here, AI economics for agents becomes an architectural issue as much as it is a financial one. How you architect that system, how you create sub agents to how you use caching to caching strategies so that you don't have to constantly hit the LLM. How do you reduce recurring loops? Context, again, we've talked about it today, plays a key role. The more context that you can provide agents, the more accurate, the lower cost, the less you're not throwing all your raw data at an agent. So that whole topic is a huge one. We have a lot of insight on that, but I 100% agree that now let's go back to Newton. I didn't tell you one little final bit about that Newton case study. They actually reduced their call center from 3,000 to 800 going to 400. And you know what? Their margins didn't change because the ongoing cost, even though they did massive amounts of cost optimized design, also low latency design for that call center. They are sort of at the forefront of doing that. Their margins didn't change because the ongoing cost of inference for those agents is the same or more than the cost of the headcount that they reduced. Hence, that business case rests solely on being able, what's great about it, because it's still a great business case, it gives them a different value vector. They're able to scale much faster than they could without implementing that system. If they didn't have that value, that wouldn't have been a great case for them. So final point I'll make is that yes, 100% agree that costs are going crazy. 100% agree you need to manage those proactively. And another point, the tools don't exist for you to do that. The FinOps tools for a cloud, they aren't the same as what you need for agentic AI FinOps. And that is a very nascent market. We are starting to track it. We will have market coverage, some sort of MQ in 2027. But honestly, the AI first organizations that are tracking in real time and doing beyond just monitoring, beyond just setting quotas, but doing like intelligent value-based tiering, having kill switches, and being able to sort of real time managing the cost of agents. That's a work in process. That's an emerging business, and there are a lot of the organizations that are doing that are building it themselves for now. So keep an eye out. That is a very fast developing market. But that's it. I'm sorry I only got to the one cost question. There were a bunch of others, but given that so many people asked it, I thought we needed a detailed response. So hopefully that was useful. I think it's about time to go. We would love your feedback on the session. Please rate it. Have a great rest of the day wherever you are.
Thank you, Rita. Before you go, just a quick reminder, you can access additional resources at the bottom of the page. Please rate this session and share your feedback on the insights provided. To submit your rating, click the Rate the Session below the player. Please note that 5 hearts is the top rating. We also welcome your feedback on the insights provided in the Leave the Further feedback box. All right, with that, I'd like to thank again our presenter. And of course, whether you are new to Gartner or an existing client, thank you for joining us today. Have a great day. Goodbye.